somebody had kicked my toe, the toe of my shoe, and my toenail actually went up.
Don Nelson was never just another basketball coach. He was a basketball revolutionary. For decades, Nelson challenged traditional NBA thinking with ideas that seemed strange at first, but later became part of the modern game. From his playing days with the Boston Celtics to becoming one of the winningest coaches in NBA history, Don Nelson built a career defined by creativity, confidence, and a willingness to do things differently. Born on May 15, 1940, in Muskegon, Michigan, Nelson grew up with basketball at the center of his life. He eventually played college basketball at the University of Iowa before entering the NBA. In 1962, Nelson was selected by the Chicago Zephyrs in the NBA draft, but his career would truly take off after joining the Boston Celtics. With Boston, Nelson became part of one of the greatest basketball dynasties in history. Playing alongside legendary stars such as Bill Russell, John Havlicek, and Sam Jones, Nelson won 5 NBA championships with the Celtics. But Nelson wasn't always the biggest or most athletic player on the court. What separated him was his intelligence. He understood angles, positioning, timing, and perhaps most importantly, how to take advantage of what the defense gave him. One of his most famous moves became known as the Nelly ball philosophy. Years later, Nelson would take that thinking from the court to the sidelines. After retiring as a player, he began building his coaching career. And that's where Don Nelson truly became an NBA icon. As a coach, Nelson refused to believe that basketball had to be played according to traditional rules. He experimented with unusual lineups, smaller players, unconventional defensive strategies, and offensive systems designed to create mismatches. One of his most famous ideas was using a smaller lineup to force opposing big men into uncomfortable situations. Instead of asking, how do we stop their biggest player? Nelson often asked a different question. How do we make their biggest player defend us? That mindset became a major part of his coaching identity. Nelson coached several NBA teams, including the Milwaukee Bucks, Golden State Warriors, New York Knicks, and Dallas Mavericks. His time with the Golden State Warriors became particularly memorable. In the 2006-07 season, Nelson returned to Golden State and helped lead one of the most surprising playoff runs in NBA history. The Warriors faced the Dallas Mavericks, a team that finished with one of the best records in the league. Many people expected Dallas to advance easily. Instead, Nelson's Warriors shocked the basketball world. Golden State defeated Dallas in 6 games, becoming the first 8-seeded team in NBA history to defeat a number 1 seed in a best-of-7 playoff series. It was a perfect example of Nelson's coaching philosophy: speed, spacing, aggression, and unpredictability. The Warriors played with a style that made their opponents uncomfortable, and Don Nelson understood exactly how to exploit that discomfort. But Nelson's impact went far beyond one playoff series. His coaching career helped influence the direction of modern basketball. The idea of playing smaller, spreading the floor, creating mismatches, and prioritizing offensive flexibility would eventually become much more common throughout the NBA. In many ways, ideas that once seemed unconventional became part of the basketball mainstream. Nelson also became known for developing and empowering talented players. He understood that sometimes a player's greatest strength could appear when they were placed in a role nobody expected. That philosophy helped make his teams unpredictable and often extremely difficult to defend. Despite his success, Nelson's career wasn't without controversy. His unconventional methods sometimes created conflict with players and management, but that was also part of what made him unique. Don Nelson was never interested in simply following the basketball establishment. He wanted to challenge it, and that willingness to experiment became his legacy. As a player, Nelson won 5 championships. As a coach, he became one of the NBA's most successful regular season coaches, eventually reaching 1,335 career regular season victories, a record that stood for years. But statistics only tell part of the story. Don Nelson's greatest contribution may have been his influence on how basketball could be imagined. He showed that a coach didn't always need the biggest lineup. He showed that traditional positions could be challenged. And he showed that sometimes the best strategy is to make your opponent play a game they aren't comfortable playing. Today, The NBA is filled with fast-paced offenses, positionless basketball, small ball lineups, and players who can shoot from almost anywhere on the court. Many of those ideas have roots in the experiments of coaches like Don Nelson. His career reminds us that innovation is often misunderstood before it is appreciated. Don Nelson didn't always fit the conventional definition of a basketball coach. He was an experimenter, a strategist, a risk-taker, and above all, a basketball thinker. His legacy isn't simply about the championships he won or the games he coached. It's about the way he changed the conversation. Because sometimes the biggest impact in sports doesn't come from following the future. It comes from imagining it first. And Don Nelson did exactly that.